It is truly my honor and pleasure to be with all of you this evening. Very special, heartfelt gratitude to this wonderful family who have opened the doors to their home on this very auspicious night. Thank you. I have been, by Krishna's grace, living in India as more or less for 48 years now. I came in 1970. When I first arrived, I was really a stranger in a foreign land by social estimation. As our dear Namamrita Devi was explaining, I did not have any money. I crossed the border. It was already dark outside in Firozpur from Pakistan. I went over through the no man's land. It was not in a city area, it was just agricultural fields and forests. I was walking through these fields. There was a moon, there was stars. I didn't know which way to go. I wasn't on a road, I was just in a field. The first Indian person I ever met in my life was the border guard at the border. Because before the 70s, there were hardly any Indian people in the United States. And the first I met was not friendly, forbid me to enter. But I was walking through that field, not knowing where to go, not knowing anyone. I never felt so at home. I felt I was being embraced by my mother. I felt every star was blessing me. Every leaf and every tree was blessing me. I truly felt at home, more than ever before in my life. And this evening, before coming up to this beautifully decorated terrace, I sat for some time with the family. Such a united family, so much affection, centered around, the higher principles of each other. It is the legacy, it is the heritage of India. It is what India has to really contribute to the world. The principles of Dharma. The principles of Dharma that keeps families together. The principles of Dharma where we do our work with integrity. We earn with integrity. We spend with compassion. We understand the vision of the sages, the rishis, the kings, the families of India have preserved over the centuries. that real wealth, real success is the integrity of our lives, the character we live. There's a foundation we build our life on, and that's principles. Greed, arrogance, selfishness, envy, anger, unnecessary anger born of an unsatisfied mind and senses. These are principles that have grown in this age of Kali Yuga to be heroic. Someone who becomes powerful, successful, famous, wealthy, based on cheating, greed, arrogance, all over the world. These people are considered heroes. But actually, from a perspective of truth, from the perspective of a civilized heart, and this is universal, such people are pathetic because they have poverty in their hearts. A rich heart is a heart that is rich with love and compassion. A poverty-stricken heart is a heart that's struck by the disease of greed, selfishness, and therefore true love and true compassion cannot exist. Even so-called love becomes selfish. This is the greatness of India. People live for higher principles. Two of the greatest epics of our Indian culture are the Mahabharata and Ramayana. In traditional Indian homes, children are told stories from Ramayana and Mahabharata, sometimes every day. People are brought up understanding not just the stories, but the messages, the principles that the stories inspire. So obviously, Mahabharata is 100,000 verses, Ramayana is very long, so we can't speak so much tonight. But I'd like to discuss very briefly a specific parallel line of thought that are common in both. The characters of Vidura and Vibhishan. Vidura was the younger brother of Dhritarashtra. Vidura was a man of dharma, a man of real character. He was fair, and he was actually everyone's well-wisher. He saw Dhritarashtra due to attachment to his son. He didn't try to discipline his son. He spoiled his son miserably. Duryodhana was envious, greedy, selfish, and was willing to get what he wanted by any means. Even if it meant murdering his own auntie, Kunti, who loved him like her own son. Murdering his own cousin brothers, Yudhisthira, who was never anything but a well-wisher to him. And Dhritarashtra went around with he went along with everything. He was responsible. Dhritarashtra was blind physically, blind morally, and blind spiritually. Under Dhritarashtra's rule, Draupadi, who was the symbol of dharma, of devotion, she was exploited, she was abused. And if not for Krishna's intervention, she would have been abused far more than she was. Vidura was always giving Dhritarashtra good advice. But Dhritarashtra would not listen because of selfish attachments. Vidura was always giving Duryodhana good advice. And ultimately Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra, because of Vidura's good advice, trying to lead his brother and his nephew on the path of morality, truth, and dharma, he was verbally abused, and he was exiled. His house, his family, his everything was taken away. He was nothing but a well-wisher. He was compassionate toward everyone. But he stood up for the truth at any cost. He lived with dharma at any cost. Vidura is one of the greatest of all heroes. In the great scriptures of the Vedas. And ultimately, after the Pandavas were victorious in Kurukshetra, Vidura returned to spiritually enlighten his own brother, Dhritarashtra, who violently turned against him. He came back and saved his life. Similarly, Vibhishan, he was the younger brother of Ravana. Ravana was selfish, he was greedy, he was exploitative, he was violent. And Vibhishan was always giving him good advice, but never listened. He lived by such principles.